All right, so welcome to another edition of Cooking a la Quarantine. I'm Jason, and today we're going to make beef short rib ragu. Now, I'm doing this because I had a friend of mine in college named Rachel, who, after a couple of trips to the bar, I guess I used to call her Ragu all the time. So, Rachel, this one's for you. So what we're going to do is I've got a package of short ribs here from HRB. I'm going to use half this package. I'm going to cut the short rib up. I'm going to sear them. I'm going to make my own stock here, and then I'm going to cook this for 4 hours. Then I'm going to make the tomato medley. I don't know if it's a sauce or a medley or whatever. It's got peppers and onions and all kinds of crap in it. So anyway, let's get started. So what I'm going to do is I've got a big bulb of American-made garlic here that I'm going to try to smash. Oh, figures. The one time I actually videotaped this stuff, it actually worked. So I've got my garlic here, and then I'm going to cut up an onion, and I've got some fresh rosemary. I almost said thyme, but I don't have any thyme. I need to get some. But what we'll do is I'll cook this in oil real quick, and then I'll cut up the short rib and make up my stock. And I got to do it pretty quick because my wife's getting ready to jump in the shower. So we'll be right back. All right, so when I started this thing, when I was lucky to get 50 viewers, a good friend of mine from high school, Sean Brownlee, owns a company called Ravenex. And I bumped into him on Facebook and I asked him about whether or not they do butcher twine, because here there's only one place to get it, and I mean, I don't know, I just have a hard time finding it. So I asked him, I said, Sean, would you be willing to send me some butcher twine to play with? And that's what he sent me. What I like about this, it's 100% cotton. It's made here right in North Carolina, and it's a veteran-owned business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this sprig so I can pull it out when we make our stock. Now, so I've got some salt and pepper, some onion powder, some garlic bread spread mix. I've got some red wine, and I've got some of my chicken stock. Now this stuff, you know, it's called for garlic, salt, and all this other stuff, and I had that sitting in the pantry, so we'll give it a shot, right? So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut up the short rib. But something that I find very helpful, and it keeps me from going to the hospital, is one of these. And we'll be right back. All right, so I've got my fillet knife, or fillet glove here, and this, it saves me a trip from going to the ER, and they're only like $6 at Walmart, and kind of makes me feel like a medieval knight wearing chainmail. So I'll throw this in the dishwasher. Here's what I'm going to do. First of all, I'm going to try not to contaminate my seasoning bottles. So that's kind of why I'm using a knife. That's something I came up with right on the fly. So I've got a little pepper, a little salt, a little onion powder. I have no. Oh, this one's not open. I'll have to go grab one out of here. Here we are. A little bit of onion powder. All right, and then the recipe calls for garlic, salt. We didn't have any. Stacy said this was probably pretty close. So, what I got there. And now, I'm going to flip these over. Oh, look at that. Skills. This is probably completely unnecessary, but I'm having fun. Alright. So there, I flipped it over, and if you notice, I didn't touch any of the stuff. So now, my seasonings aren't contaminated. I've done that a couple of times, but I've wiped it off with disinfectant wipes. Alright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to braise, or not braise, but sear the ribs in the pan over there. So I'm going to pat this down, pat it down. Good little rib. Well, did better than I thought, but I'm gonna cook up these ribs real quick on both sides, and we'll be right back. Well, I'm rubbing the sides of my meat here because my lovely producer slash camera woman slash wife told me I didn't season it on the sides. So and we're just going to cook that, and I'm going to flip it around, and then we're going to make up the stock. And then we're going to let it go for about 4 hours, not uncovered, covered. I almost said undercover. So, we'll be right back. Smells good as shit, doesn't it? So here's my infamous smoked chicken stock. All right, so in goes my rosemary, and I have no problems leaving it in here because it's 100% natural. I've got 2 cups of water, 1 cup of stock, and here's some leftover wine from last night. It's red. It's cheap from the box because here in North Carolina, Aldi's sells a box of wine for $10. Yeah. And we're going to set it, let it go for about 4 hours. So I'm going to hook up my NSA listening device. Alexa, set a timer for 4 hours. And there we go. I'll see you in 4 hours. All right, so 3 hours have passed. So what we're going to do is, if you can look at that short rib, and yeah, it's got some fat on it. We'll take that off. But I want you to see how much that's falling off the bone. And just yummy goodness. Now what I'm going to do, I'm not going to waste this. I'm going to turn this into beef stock. I don't think there's enough to can, but whatever it is, I'll save it and use it for something else. But there's our, well, there's our beef bones. And if you look, oh, there's our thyme. Still bunched up in the trash. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter this stuff, probably put it in a mason jar, probably a quart-sized jar, put it in the fridge, and go from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool so I can pick it. I'm going to empty the stuff out of here so I can reuse this to make our ragu, or raguette, or whatever it's called. What do I call it? I call it tomatoes, peppers, spices, onions, and vampire repellent. That's what I call it. And then I'm going to put it over some noodles. So we'll be right back. So I'm just ladling this in, and all that is a coffee filter, and that's just plugging the hole enough to let all this stuff go through. It may bust through, it may not, I don't know, but doing the best I can with what I've got. So we tried with the coffee filter, that really didn't work. So what I'm doing is I've got the smallest colander I've got, and we're going to ladle this up. And I'm going to save some of it in case I need to make the tomato stuff. So we'll be right back. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the sauce for this. And what I did was, this stuff's all out of my container garden. These are Cherokee purples. And some of you might say, oh, it's blasphemous that, you know, I'm using this to make sauce. I don't really care. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these up. I'm going to reduce them. I'm going to turn these peppers into tiny, tiny little pieces, because my wife picks it out like a 12-year-old. You know, if there's a little piece of pepper that's too big, she'll pick it out. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to add some garlic, and some salt and pepper, and we're going to cut it down. And while I'm waiting for that to happen, I'll cut up the short rib off the bone and throw the fat out and stuff like that. So we'll be right back. Okay, now that this is uh, cooled down significantly, I'm going to pull off the fat, and we're going to keep the meat for the tomato part. And like I said, this is grass-fed beef. It's very lean. There are some fat parts. I am going to keep some of that in there though, because personally, I think it helps with flavor. So anyway, let me pick through this. You guys don't need to get all grossed out, and we'll be right back. Alright, so here's what I've gotten here so far. I've got my beef, I got my tomatoes, I got this. I may need more tomatoes, so what I might do is break out some of my homemade tomato sauce, but we'll find out. We'll let this sit for about an hour, and we'll come back and revisit it. Okay, I'm going to add some red wine here into the mix. I'm going to get this boiling hot, and then I'll simmer it, and we'll let it go for about 45 minutes to an hour. Okay, so I'm going to add some tomato sauce, about, it's supposed to be half, but I guess it's 3/4 of a can. So I'm going to cook this up for another 2 minutes. We're going to boil up our homemade pasta, and I'm going to get ready to plate this. So we'll be right back. Alright, so I'm making my ragu. I'm getting ready to boil my homemade noodles. And, I'm going to make this simple. This is the last of our homemade butter. I'll probably make some more. This Cutco spreader works wonderfully. And I'm just going to reuse some of the stuff from earlier. Alright, I'm going to put this in the oven on broil. Alright folks, so I've got my homemade noodles here. I made that in a video a couple back. I've got my short rib ragu. I added a little tomato sauce just to make me feel a little bit better. it was a dark color because of the tomatoes. And as with almost every nap meal, including breakfast, a little cheese, if you please. So I'm going to let that sit. I'm going to grab a fork. And we'll be right back. Alright, so here's what I did. I made a ragu out of the short rib. And you can see a big chunk of that right here. I used my homemade tomatoes, my homemade sauce. That's really good. Who would have ever thought to add short ribs to making a ragu? Or raguette, or whatever they say. Alright, so some homemade noodles, some sauce. I tell you what, that's pretty doggone good. And this stuff's been soaking up the tomato water. And I actually used sweet Hawaiian buns because that's what we had sitting around the house. That's pretty good. Well, give this a shot. Be kind, be excellent to each other, and have a great day. I'll see you soon.